concept of racism and the most egregious form of slavery is simple insanity. How another human being can come up with something like that and sustain it for centuries is a clear sign of insanity. I have come to the conclusion as a 70-year-old black man living in America, we cannot fix white people. We haven't been able to fix them in 400 years. We cannot fix them. White people must fix white people. This is
What's up everybody? I hope you're doing good. Welcome back to the channel. I'm happy to see you and I hope you're also happy to see me. And once again, it is another beautiful time to educate ourselves, to empower ourselves with knowledge, because knowledge is power. So in today's video, I want us to learn something very beautiful. And I just learned something that really on the surface it looks like basically something very easy, but it's very profound. That and because I'm, as usual, good enough, generous enough to share knowledge with you whenever I come across any. Because the good thing with knowledge is the more you share, the more you gain. You do not deplete by sharing. And what I learned today is you have yourself to fix, and I have myself to fix. Everybody is has their own responsibility to fix themselves. When I talk about this, from a large scale, black people have black people to fix, and white people have themselves as white people to fix, and so as for the yellow people and any other kind of people. Without wasting so much of your time, I have a video to share with you here. Let's jump right into this video. Let's listen to this gentleman, and at the end of this video, we will have a short discussion on the same. So let's dive right in.
How could an America who could morally, spiritually, and biblically justify the kidnapping, raping, and pillaging of another two people, natives already in America and Africans brought to America, and perhaps had God not sent us to America, America might have self-destructed by now. That's how insane the social construct of racism is, and white superiority. That's how insane. This is an insane. Do you understand that this is an insane concept? The most egregious concept of slavery, because Africans were familiar with slavery, but you were indentured. You were enslaved to work on a pyramid, but then you went home. No. They took it to a whole new level. No, not only are you enslaved, but when you have children, they will be enslaved. And when they have children, they will be enslaved. And you will be enslaved, your whole family, for, about 250 years until it's illegal. That had never been created before. So the concept of racism and the most egregious form of slavery is simple insanity. How another human being can come up with something like that and sustain it for centuries is a clear sign of insanity. I want you to write this down. I want you to go on YouTube today or tomorrow, and I want you to search Toni Morrison and Charlie Rose. How many of you know who Charlie Rose is? One of the best interviewers on PBS. Toni Morrison and Charlie Rose interview. Charlie Rose asked Toni Morrison, what did she think about racism? Toni Morrison, one of the most brilliant minds on the planet, not just black, Nobel laureate, Pulitzer Prize winning Toni Morrison, looked at Charlie with the seriousness of a heart attack and said, "That is the wrong question, Charlie. The question is, what do you think about racism?" Charlie Rose's wife. She said, "Because racism feels insane to me." And it is insane. So my advice to you, Charlie, is that white people get therapy. That's what she told Charlie Rose on public television. Y'all need to get therapy. I don't know why more of America isn't talking about this. And leave black people alone and not let your insanity drive us insane. Because that's what you're trying to do. And they have done a very good job. So I have come to the conclusion as a 70-year-old black man living in America, we cannot fix white people. We haven't been able to fix them in 400 years. We cannot fix them. White people must fix white people. This is what Toni Morrison said. Y'all got to fix yourself. We can't fix you. We have failed. You got to fix you. But we can fix ourselves. That's the most important thing. We can undo over time some of the damage done to us by their insanity. And we are damaged goods. I don't have to explain that to you, right? Just look at our behavior. So we are damaged goods, and we need to work on us. We can fix us. In fact, white folks are not going to fix us. Do you understand that? They haven't in 400 years. Who are white folks going to fix? White folks. Asians are going to fix Asians. East Indians are working on East Indians. They ain't working on you, right? Arabs are working on Arabs. Our Jewish brothers and sisters are working on their issues and their people. That's who they should be working on. So they're not going to fix us. I have a good white friend who said to me, "George, I know what black people's problem is." I said, "Oh, really, Bob? What is black people's problem?" He said, "You spend all of your time thinking about us, and we don't spend any of our time thinking about you. So, George, if you're not thinking about you, and we damn sure ain't thinking about you, who's thinking about you?" I had to do the Holy Ghost dance. I had no comeback. I had no comeback. So that's right. So we have to spend our time working on us. And there is much work to do, right? So we'll put a pin in that thought. Look at a very, very short video that speaks powerfully to one of the reasons you must be at the Power Networking Conference in your own backyard. It is a concept that I have been working on for 30 years. And now I don't know if you know, but I'm the brother that came up with the term connect the dots. Right? I've been saying that for almost 30 years. It's now a very, very popular phrase, but if you read any of my books, the first one to say that, the first one to put that together. So I think Cassandra is going to start this piece, and let me frame it up for you. Just hold on one second, Cassandra. This was a piece I did 8 years ago at Eddie Long's church in Atlanta during the State of Black America with Tavis Smiley. How many of you remember those big all-day programs, the State of Black America? And I was called upon to be on the stage with the likes of Minister Farrakhan, Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, Cornel West, Michael Eric Dyson, the who's who of Black intelligentsia. And I talked about my concept of connecting the dots. And someone found this on YouTube because Tavis videotaped it. excerpted the soundtrack from the piece, and then put together a little drawing that illustrated this idea of connecting the dots.
Warriors, I think, once asked you the question, can you imagine writing a novel that's not centered about race? And you said, absolutely.
Yes.
Will you?
That's what he asked me. I think, see, I answered the question he didn't pose. You know, Tolstoy writes about race.
Yeah.
All the time. So does Zola, so does James Joyce. Now, if anybody can go up to an imaginary James Joyce and say, you write about race all the time. It's central in your novels. When are you going to write about what? Because you see, the person who asks that question doesn't understand that he or she is also raced. So to ask me when am I going to stop, or when, if I can, is to ask a question that, in a sense, is its own answer. Yes, I can write about white people. White people can write about black people. Anything can happen in art. There are no boundaries there. Having to do it or having to prove that I can do it is what was embarrassing or insulting. In this book, I did.
It was insulting that people, help me understand, what was insulting? The idea that you felt like you had to prove that you could write without...
Yeah, the question was posed as though it were a desirable thing to do.
Right.
To write about white people or to write not about race. That's what that means to me. And that it was a difficult thing to do, a higher level of artistic endeavor, or it was more important, and that I was still writing about marginal people, and why don't I come into the mainstream?
Aren't you importing too much into the question?
Maybe.
I think so.
Well, what else could it be, Charlie? What does that mean? What does that question mean? You tell me if I'm making too much.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I don't think it probably means, I didn't ask the question, so I don't think it probably means, but I don't think it had to do about you were marginalizing by not writing about.
It only works if I can go to William Styron, well, maybe not William Styron because he has done it, somebody, major, white, and say, as a journalist.
Can you write about black people?
That's right. Can I say that? What kind of question is that to put to Ed Doctorow, who has done it, by the way?
Sure.
But I mean, if I can say, when are you going to write about black people to a white writer, if that's a legitimate question to a white writer, then it is a legitimate question to me. I just don't think it is. You know, so the glove has to be pulled inside out. If it's in other words, it's not a literary question. It has nothing to do with the literary imagination. It's a sociological question that should not be put to me. I couldn't ask that of any writer who was, I wouldn't ask it of a black writer when you're going to write about white people. Now, maybe I'm wrong. You can tell me now or later if I've blown it up all out of proportion. I don't think so. I just don't know what the question means except what I think it means. You think it may just be a little question, a little curious, small incidental question. When are you going to... Maybe I'm responding because I have had reviews in the past that have accused me of not writing about white people. I remember a review of Sula in which the reviewer said, this is all well and good, but one day she, meaning me, will have to face up to the real responsibilities and get mature and write about the real confrontation for black people, which is white people. As though our lives have no meaning and no depth without the white gaze. And I've spent my entire writing life trying to make sure that the white gaze was not the dominant one in any of my books. And the people who helped me most arrive at that kind of language were African writers. Chinua Achebe, Bessie Head. Those writers who could assume the centrality of their race because they were Africans. And they didn't explain anything to white people. Those questions were incomprehensible to them. Those questions that I would have as a minority living in an all-white country like the United States. But when I read the poetry of Cesar, or the poetry of Senghor, or the novels particularly, Things Fall Apart was more important to me than anything. Only because there was a language, there was a posture, there were the parameters. I could step in now, and I didn't have to be consumed by or be concerned by the white gaze. That was the liberation for me. It has nothing to do with who reads the books. Everyone, I hope, of any race, any gender, any country. But my sovereignty and my authority as a racialized person had to be struck immediately with the very first book. And it was strange because in this country, many books, particularly then, 40s, 50s, you could feel the address of the narrator over my shoulder, talking to somebody else, talking to somebody white. I could tell because they're explaining things that they didn't have to explain if they were talking to me. It was that. So it's profound for me. So that I may be, you may be right, maybe I'm over-dramatizing the whole question, which was innocent enough because the problem of being free to write the way you wish to without this other racialized gaze is a serious one for an African American writer. Very serious.
I think this is one of those times where what you just said, you gave and ennobled an answer regardless of the significance
Oh, that's good.
of the question.
All right, so one thing comes out clear. White people must fix white people. And so as for black people and for yellow people and for anybody else. So this is a question of responsibility. You know, in most cases, or most of the times in this channel, in my videos, and in other videos, when we're talking about the question of racism and white supremacy, we tend to put all the burden on black people, on ourselves as black people, in terms of undoing the wrongs, taking care of the injustices, forcefully trying to ask for apologies and reparations, and just trying to hold white supremacists and racist people to account. And we advocate that so much for that. I mean, you know, really so much. And the obvious reason is because we black people are the victims of white supremacy, white dominance, or I mean racism. And I often say that racism in itself is an enterprise, is a business, is a multi-billion industry that is benefiting a few white supremacists, not even all white people. I mean, by proxy, by extension, some white people might be getting the advantages of white supremacy, but as a business itself, fully functional and running and beneficial, is for those that instituted it, build it up, set it up to benefit them and the generations right after. Okay, or those that really understand the complexities of the whole concept of whiteness and white supremacy. Sometimes I do tell people in this channel, ain't nobody that's really white and nobody is black, Because if I were black, I'd be looking like this. But clearly, I think there is a clear difference between my complexion and this. And the so-called white people clearly don't look like this. So it was a concept that was constructed by someone who was benefiting, who benefits massively out of it. And now the question of responsibility is coming in here. There is a mess that occurred, and this mess, as I have discussed, has black people as victims, but also has white people eventually slowly becoming victims of the same system that some of their ancestors, I say some, instituted or came up with. So now who takes responsibility? White people came up with the concept of racism. So who is supposed to deconstruct what was constructed? The same people that constructed it. It is a responsibility, first and foremost, of the white man who came up with it to try and reverse the situation, to try and arrest this situation. And you realize that anytime we black people fight against racism, we fight from a perspective of revenge. But if it were white people that would take responsibility, and I love it that a couple of white folks have been coming out and realize that, of course, they might not have been the one who came up with the concept, but the mess is already there and their ancestors came up with that. It is their responsibility to clean up the mess. If it is white people that take responsibility of cleaning up the mess, then we black people might just have to not think about being very revengeful, because whenever your friend has done something wrong to you and they come out to admit the mistake and apologize, I mean, what do? You are going to forgive them. But if they don't do that, you're going to feel like you always want to revenge. So this is strongly a question of responsibility on who should really tackle firsthand this problem of racism and white supremacy. The first person is the white supremacist himself. We black people can work on ourselves, and because we didn't construct this thing, anything else that I believe we black people need to work on is our unity, is our proliferation, our success in different areas, in telling our own story, in rewriting the story, in challenging wrong narratives. That is working on ourselves. And, instead of trying to go out there to look for greener pastures, it's good time for us as black people in Africa, outside of Africa, to water grass on our own territory. And because grass in this world of today is greener where you water the grass. A reason why in a country like the United States, white supremacy, racism is so profound and still has its root sunk so deep is because such a country it has been created on that concept that someone else has to be trodden upon for it to be there. And we know who is being stepped on for that country to stand. It's the black people, is the black immigrants. They are making the system work, but who is the one that is cultivating the land is not the one that is ultimately enjoying the fruits. The black person is tilling the land, is doing all the dirty work, but the white supremacist who set up the system is reaping all the fruits. So that is why that country and I challenged you in one of the videos, and I said, think of an America minus the input of black people, minus the input of African Americans, there would be no a country like America that it is as it is today. Sometimes what baffles me the most is a sort of entitlement that is there with the white folks, those that really are racist, and because they love to make themselves the center of everything. Because there's nothing wrong about a black writer choosing not to write about white people. Simply, what the black writer is doing is fixing himself first. We don't question about white writers not writing about black people. So there's no point in being surprised that a black writer is not writing about white people in America or in Europe. Thinking that maybe they should write about white people just gives me a signal of, are you so insecure? Do you have to be seen? Are you do you feel so entitled? Must you be the center of everything? I mean, it is about is it about self-esteem that you need to be seen all the time, that you feel like you're not being seen because we're not talking about you? Why does it always, are you being a sadist? Do you gain joy, some little sort of joy, by oppressing other people? Because I mean, clearly, as you have heard from that gentleman, is for us black people, we have ourselves to fix. If we don't, and I have always said this, stop waiting for anything. Nobody is concerned about you. Just wake up and work the way out for yourself as a black person. White people are not going to fix us as black people. No, no, no. White people are not going to fix Africa. Africans will fix Africa if they want to. Nobody else is going to fix Africa for you. White people are not going to fix black people in America. White people are not going to fix black people in the Caribbeans or in South America. And white Europeans are not going to fix Afro-Europeans. Everybody has to fix themselves. You have to clean your own house. Nobody is coming to clean your house. You need to clean your house yourself. So deep, so deep. I would really love to hear what you think about what you've heard, what we've learned today, what we've talked about today. You can share your thoughts and your opinions in the comment section. Share this video with your friends and your family. And please subscribe to this channel if you have not. Ask your friends to subscribe to this channel if they have not. And until next time, I will be happy to see you in the next video. Peace out.